Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up the Reductus Saboteur for the Gene Stealer cults. Now I've assembled the model up to the point that we get in the way of painting, which is its cape is separate, the body is fully assembled, the head is separate, and the plunger thing she pushes in is going to be separate. These are all the paints and materials used, even the ones that are not shown in the video, and the model is primed with ultra matte black car primer. And something I learned from the previous model, the Clamavis, is having a base coat that is of a certain color that permeates all throughout, kind of ties everything together. So I'm going to try with Nagaroth Night. I'm going to paint every part of the model with Nagaroth Night. Now with Corn Red, Mephiston Red, Troll Slayer Orange, Fire Dragon Bright, and Nagaroth Night, we're going to paint the cape first. Now remember, there's the cape in the back and there's a front scarf cape in the front. There's going to be a noticeable gap between them that's going to be an issue in building, but we will take care of that at the end of the video when everything's pretty much done. So first off, we're going to treat the base layer of black as, well, the Nagaroth Night is the first layer. Then with Corn Red, we're going to apply it basically all over. Then with Mephiston Red, we're going to cover basically 80 to 90% of all the cape and the deepest, darkest recesses, as well as the inside of the cape that is going to be at her back is going to stay Corn Red. Once that's done, we're going to take Troll Slayer Orange and do thin lines along all the major folds, and then horizontal slashes all along the cloak and along its curvature. Then we're going to go back with Fire Dragon Bright and basically redo the Troll Slayer Orange step, but much less, like half of what was on Troll Slayer Orange. And then we got our nice light points, edges, and stuff. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take Nagaroth Night and turn it into a wash. Make sure you use filtered water, because if the paint is too thin, the specks and stuff from your pipes and stuff will show up on the model. So filtered water takes care of that. And basically we're going to apply a wash all over to tie the colors together. Then we're going to apply another wash into the recesses. And then we're going to start applying multiple washes on the edges of the cloak, sort of like, to symbolize like it's clean on top, dirty on the bottom. So it goes from light to dark at the tips, and repeat this process multiple times until like I'm satisfied. Thinner is always better, so I repeat this like 5 or 6 times. And then with Fire Dragon Bright, I then re-highlight the most raised areas and stuff, sort of like the diamond on a ring, to add more eye-catchingness to it. Now with Eshin Gray, Dawnstone, Nagaroth Night, and Administrative Gray, we're going to paint the armor. So I'm trying a different way than how I painted the previous time, the order of this. So the wash is going to be after the first 2 layers to eliminate redundancies and speed up time. So Eshin Gray all over on the armor and stuff, then Dawnstone as a highlight on all the edges and the flat planes, then wash of Nagaroth Night over. Then I go back with Dawnstone, re-highlight the edges, and make a sharp edge, well, like still kind of thick, but not super sharp along the feet, the layers and stuff. And then with Administrative Gray, I do fine lines on the most raised areas of the folds, the edges and stuff on the boot, and then I do some slight blending in, because remember, always have a good water down so it's a bit translucent so the underlayer can be there. Because if it's better to have to paint 2 layers on there and to get the full color of the paint you're doing. That way you can have a slow transitional build a little bit. And so most of this lighting stuff happened on her back legs or back boots, essentially, where light would hit them. Even though this is going to be a bit obscured by the cloak, but I'm not 100% sure how the cloak is going to look, so just in case. Alright, with Cantor Blue, Calidor Sky, Fenrisian Grey, and Nagaroth Night, we're going to paint the blue pants and shirt and stuff. So basically, don't forget, her right arm also has a sleeve that's folded up. I forgot it and had to redo it after the fact. So basically what we're going to do is Cantor Blue all over. Then we're going to highlight 90% of what we just did with Calidor Sky. Then we're going to do a 1-to-1-ish mix of Calidor Sky and Fenrisian Grey, focusing on the major flat areas, the upper raised areas, edges, highlights essentially. Then we're going to apply Nagaroth Night all over as a wash to tie the colors together and tone it down. Then with pure Fenrisian Grey, we're going to highlight the most raised edges and stuff. And yeah, it seems to be working, creating a nice depth of shadow that brings out the highlights. Alright, with Cantor Blue, Calidor Sky, Baharoth Blue, and Nagaroth Night, we're going to be painting the Gene Stealer arm components. Now, this is a little messy because it's flat curvature and stuff, so it's a little hard to make do, but basically Cantor Blue is a base. Then I cover 99% of everything with Calidor Sky, essentially. Only the deepest, darkest recesses will have Cantor Blue. Then 1-to-1-ish Calidor Sky and Baharoth Blue, focusing on the upper flat planes as well as the sharp edges and stuff as a base layer, and then we're going to do fine lines and dots on the sharpest edges and most raised areas. Then once that is done, we're going to take a wash of Nagaroth Night and apply it all over. I apply I think 2 in my case because of how thinned it was, and then once that was done I took Baharoth Blue again and placed a dot and a line or 2 in some areas to make it pop out more. And these rounded areas and stuff like this is a little hard for me to really get right, I notice, but oh well. Alright, with Xerxes Purple, Gene Stealer Purple, Chala Lilac, new paint by the way, and Nagaroth Night, we're going to paint the Gene Stealer hand she has. She has one on a detonator and one on the plunger. So basically Xerxes Purple all over, Gene Stealer Purple except for the deepest, darkest recesses and the middle of the fingers because there's like a crevice there. And then with Chala Lilac, I try to do the fine edges, sides, and stuff like dots here and there and a few lines to highlight the hand. However, by the way, new brush from Artist Opus. I wanted to try it and see how good it was with detail to see if it like a one brush size fits all. It is not. So fine detail like this should be done with a more proper brush, but it can get pretty close. But not close enough in this case, and it has some nuance. So this is literally the first time I'm trying it, so the hand comes out a little worse than I would like. Apply a layer of Nagaroth Night all over to tone it down, and then do some fine highlights with the Chala Lilac, which it's okay, but I was mostly focusing on the new brush. Alright, with Rhinoxide, Mornfang Brown, XV88, and Nagaroth Night, we're going to paint the leather. So, on the right leg, leather, I don't know what it is, carrying case thing, a leather gun in the cloak, a bunch of little straps here and there, and the backpack. Essentially, Rhinoxide base, highlight 90% of everything with Mornfang Brown except the deepest, darkest recesses, the folds, and such and such. Then, take XV88, water down, apply on all the edges, the upper flat planes and stuff, and then once that was done, I applied Nagaroth Night all over as a wash, and I forgot to record it, but basically I take XV88 and do final highlights with just a couple dots where the light would be, and a few highlight edges. Now, it's a little shoddy from what I would normally do, but I'm practicing with this brush, and so basically there's a little too much XV88 highlight, which kind of eclipses the Mornfang Brown, but live and learn. Now with Cadian Flesh Tone, T'Challa Lilac, and Nagaroth Knight, I didn't put it here. But basically I'm going to work on the face, and I'm going to do the same thing with her arm. So basically Cadian Flesh Tone all over. Then I'm going to add some T'Challa Lilac in to brighten it up. And then I'm going to focus on her top of her head, raised areas and stuff. Her basically bottom cheeks and jaw will still have pure Cadian Flesh Tone. And basically what I do is I keep adding some more T'Challa Lilac into it and start building up layers, focusing on her cheekbones, top of her head, nose, and like chin and stuff. And eventually, I build up to that. And then with Nagaroth Knight, I create a wash. And I don't apply it all over. What I actually do, I probably should have done that, but I put it in her eyes. I put like 2 or 3 washes into her eyes. Used a hairdryer to help speed up the process of drying, and this built the shadow and shading and helped her eyes be more defined. And I just put like a few dots of white paint there to make them stand out. So the reason I'm doing with this high contrast stuff, colors like high contrasting a bright white next to this pinky stuff, is because her face is smaller than my smallest pinky nail. It's like, with something that small, you have to do high contrasting colors and stuff so that it actually stands out. Alright, with Eshin Grey, Dawnstone, Administrative Grey, and Nagaroth Knight, we're going to paint the, I assume is a mine that she has in her right hand, the plunger that she's going to have in her left, her detonator that she has in her other left, and that mine looking thing that's on her backpack. So essentially what we're going to do is Eshin Grey all over, and then we're going to take Dawnstone. So I'm trying the new brush, essentially, so these flat plates of like things, what I did is actually I took, watered down Dawnstone, and then I just applied it by swirling. I basically made circles and went along it, and it created a texture and feel to it. Repeated that through all these things. Also her mine token as well. And then Administrative Grey, I do the same thing I did with Dawnstone all over, and then I highlight the sharp edges and stuff on all the things. For her mine that she holds in her right hand, I sort of overbrushed on it. That's how I was able to pick out a lot of the details. And then once that's done, I took Nagaroth Knight and applied it all over. However, it was a little too strong, so I had to go back to Dawnstone to fix it. But if it's thin enough, you can go back to Administrative Grey, redo a few highlights here and there, and redo some swirly things on its armor and stuff. It actually looks pretty decent, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish and Army Painter Anti-Shine Matte Varnish, I forgot to show that here, I seal the model. So basically I take AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish with a little bit of water to reduce the whitening effect. I apply 2 coats over everything. Then I do a 1-to-1-ish mix of AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish and Army Painter Anti-Shine Matte. And I mix it together and it creates this, partial translucent kind of look, and I put it all over her Gene Stealer arms. And that's it. And with Iron Warriors and Duraluminum, which is a bright silver, I paint all the metal. So basically everything that's going to be steel metal, Iron Warriors base. Then a few thin stripes of Duraluminum here and there on the more raised areas, and that's it. High contrast, because these pieces are small. All her belt buckles and things like that, and the little chain in the front. And then with Castellax Bronze and Hashut Copper, we're going to paint the tiny little medallion she has, the GSC medallion. Basically, Castellax Bronze, and then a Hashut Copper on as a highlight. That's it. And and then we assemble the model entirely. Alright, with Naggaroth Knight, Steel Legion Drab, Rakarth Flesh, and Rhinox Hide at the end, we're going to paint, so her cape, when fully assembled, there's a clearly obvious divide between the cape and the chest piece, because there's like a front scarf. There's 3 sections that clearly looks broken apart. One section is covered by another piece, so it's basically two. So what we're going to do is take Naggaroth Knight, water it down a bit, and we're going to apply directly into the recess. Once that's done, I took Steel Legion Drab and basically did I wanted to create an oval, but that wasn't going to happen. I basically created a line from one side to another to represent like a stitch. Then I took Rakarth Flesh and I applied that in the middle of this, or the upper middle, to make it look like it was stitched together, like a stitched together cloak. But this wasn't good enough. I then realized what I had to do was take a very dark color, Rhinox Hide, because it blended in with the brown and stuff I've done before, and essentially I basically tried to paint the outlines of each of these stitches to create shadows. I had to go back with Steel Legion Drab and Rakarth Flesh. Basically, if you wanted to do this, basically paint Rhinox Hide in like stitches, then paint the inside with Steel Legion Drab, and then a highlight of Rakarth Flesh in the middle. Very fine, very thin, and in the end it looks like her cloak is torn but stitched together, which fits the terrible assembly job I did. Alright, and done. Now, I fixed the thing with her right foot and the super glue that I used to attach her. So, you may notice I may have pulled a case of 1, 2, skip a few, because there's a few details I glossed over. So, essentially, do you really need me to tell you what color this button should be, or this glass panel? There's some just basic stuff that just wasn't worth mentioning, because it was just like, you can do whatever, or it's the same stuff. Her goggles, same color as her armor. The green panels, it's one dark green at her grenades, and one bright green color on top. Easy. The black and yellow stripes, I mean, just do black and yellow stripes, yellow first, until you get them pretty semi-decent. The ropes, that's going from her explosives to that thing, I didn't even bother painting. It's just one color that goes in a diagonal slash. It's like a brown. It could be whatever you want it to be. The buttons, yeah, red, a bright color, and then a very bright color for a fine dot. I don't know why I had to do 3. All the little trinkets and stuff had their steel and stuff. Yeah, so like they weren't worth mentioning, they weren't worth bothering and stuff. It's like fine details, like you can make your own choices on them. It's the major stuff I want to focus on, the big things. So overall, she was annoying to paint because she had so many doodads that I just skipped over a bunch for. And so I would like to, so one thing I noticed is that like under this camera and these highlight shots and zooms in, this model is 1.5 inches tall. You are seeing the fine brush strokes here and there. So it's like, that's why I try to do like a rotating overview from before I take the pictures, so it kind of matches what the eyes would see. But like, she's right next to me right now as I'm recording this audio. She's 1.5 inches tall. You're gonna spot her across the tabletop. You can see the most important things: her face, head, arms, the bigger stuff, the things she's holding and stuff like that. Those are fine. Under a light, she's fine. But like with these incredibly zoomed in pictures, yeah, you're gonna find a few flaws. So it's like a weird thing. It's like, it looks better in my hand. It looks better at a distance. This model is 1.5 inches tall, or like maybe 4.5 centimeters for all you inferior countries. Anyway, so overall, as a model, this is the second Reductus Saboteur. I painted the one when it first came out as a part of the Shadow Throne box set. My skills have doubled tremendously since then. And I'm trying a bunch of different things, having fun with it, going back and forth, and making things interesting. But I will say, part of this was also a learning experience with a new brush. I picked up an Artist Opus brush because, like my brushes, kind of died on me. These were my first sable brushes, and I wasn't able to make them last as long. So I wanted to, like, you know what, I'll go big. I'll get one pretty good brush. So I went to Artist Opus, I got their size 3 with their tip and stuff, and I was hoping, because I've seen guys paint high detail with larger brushes because they have a very fine tip. There's a weird nuance to the brush where it absorbs a lot, but it doesn't put out a lot of paint. It retains more than it gives out. It also is a bit finicky with how diluted it is. You have to hit like this unique point of diluted down paint for it to flow better. And so it is a bit alien to what I normally do. So you can see bits and pieces here. Eventually I switched to using a very fine brush from my original set of sable brushes, which was a very fine detail one, which I could use for her fingers and stuff like that, and nails and her eyes. And yeah, overall, a bit of an annoying model with all the little doodads, but they weren't that bad, essentially. Practicing with more NMN here and there. I do like the idea of having one foundational color that everything is based off of and that comes back in. It is interesting how it works. The cape could have probably been a little bit better in the recesses and such and the edges, but just trying stuff. Like, yeah, ultimately, I just keep experimenting and trying new stuff. The box art is a guide and inspiration. And yeah, and so one more of these characters down. I have one more to go. Next time, it probably is going to be a Keller morph or not. I got the Emperor's Children box set, but I had to make a deal to get it because it showed up right after I was broke. Pre-orders. In fact, I went to GW and I talked to one of the guys there. It's like, hey, do you have any idea when the Emperor's Children box set's going to come out? And he was like, we have no idea. It could be like at the end of this month, it could be at the end of next month. And then the next day they announced the pre-order and I was broke right then. So you might see a few Sisters of Battle models on here. Yeah, but it depends on the data slate, which ones. So, yeah. So, everyone, like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, and more to come.